I couldn't believe it had been 7 years since I last saw my grandson, Alex. We used to be so close, but after his parents got divorced, he began to drift away from me. I tried to reach out to him, but he ignored my calls and messages. I was heartbroken. One day, I received a letter in the mail from a collection agency. They were trying to contact Alex about a debt he owed. My heart sank as I read the amount, $42,000. I couldn't believe my grandson was in so much debt. I immediately tried to call him, but he didn't answer. I was worried sick about Alex. How could he have let things get so out of hand? I decided to take matters into my own hands. I drove to his house, hoping to catch him off guard. When I arrived, I knocked on the door, and he answered. "Alex, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. He looked down, embarrassed. "Grandpa, I'm sorry I didn't tell you." "Sorry?" I thundered. "You're $42,000 in debt, and you're sorry." He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. I was trying to make a better life for myself, but things didn't work out. I was taken aback by his words. What did he mean? I demanded to know more. As we sat down to talk, I realized that Alex had been struggling to make ends meet. He had taken out loans to start a business, but it had failed. He was too proud to ask for help, so he had tried to handle it on his own. I listened to his story, my anger slowly giving way to compassion. I realized that I had been so focused on my own hurt feelings that I hadn't stopped to think about what Alex might be going through. But just as I was starting to feel sorry for him, he dropped a bombshell. "Grandpa, I have something to tell you," he said, his voice trembling. "Something that will change everything." I looked at Alex, my heart racing with anticipation. What could he possibly say that would change everything? I had thought that the debt was the worst of it, but now I wasn't so sure. "What is it, Alex?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been in contact with your brother," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My eyes narrowed. "What does my brother have to do with anything?" I asked, a sense of unease creeping over me. Alex hesitated before speaking. "He's been helping me with my business. He's been advising me on how to make it successful." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My brother, who had been estranged from our family for years, was now involved in Alex's business. It didn't make sense. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" I demanded, trying to keep my anger in check. Alex looked down, shamefaced. "I was afraid of how you would react. You and your brother haven't exactly been on good terms over the years." I couldn't argue with that. My brother and I had a long and complicated history. We had been close as children, but as we grew older, we began to drift apart. He had always been the more reckless of the two of us, and his actions had caused a lot of tension in our family. But despite our differences, I had never thought that he would stoop to involving himself in my grandson's business. What was he after? "Alex, I need to know more about what's going on," I said, my mind racing with questions. "What exactly has my brother been advising you to do?" Alex looked up at me, a hesitant look on his face. "He's been telling me to take risks, to invest in some pretty shady deals. He says it's the only way to make a profit, but I'm not so sure." I felt a chill run down my spine. This sounded like exactly the kind of thing my brother would do. He had always been reckless, and now he was involving my grandson in his schemes. "Alex, you need to get out of this as fast as you can," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You can't trust my brother. He's only looking out for himself." But Alex just shook his head. "I've already invested too much, Grandpa. I have to see it through." I felt a sense of despair wash over me. What had my brother gotten my grandson into? And how was I going to get him out of it? As I sat there, trying to think of a way to fix the situation, I heard a knock at the door. It was a soft, hesitant knock, as if the person on the other side was unsure of themselves. Who could that be? Alex asked, looking at me nervously. I got up to answer the door, my heart racing with anticipation. Who was it, and what did they want? As I opened the door, I was shocked to see my brother standing there. He had a smug look on his face, and I could tell that he was up to no good. "Ah, brother," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I see you're still as nosy as ever." I felt a surge of anger, but I tried to keep my cool. "What do you want, brother?" I asked, my voice firm. He smiled, a sly smile that made my skin crawl. "I've come to talk to Alex about his business. I think we can help him make a lot of money." I knew that I had to stop him, but I wasn't sure how. My brother was a master manipulator, and I knew that he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. As I stood there, trying to think of a way to stop my brother, I realized that I was in for the fight of my life. I was going to have to do everything in my power to protect my grandson, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that he was safe. But as I looked at my brother, I knew that I was in for a surprise. He was holding a piece of paper in his hand, and it looked like a contract. "What's that?" I asked, my heart racing with anticipation. My brother smiled, a triumphant smile. "It's a contract, brother. A contract that will make Alex rich beyond his wildest dreams." I felt a sense of dread wash over me. What had my brother gotten Alex into? And how was I going to get him out of it? As I stood there, trying to think of a way to stop my brother, I knew that I was running out of time. I had to act fast, or risk losing my grandson forever. But as I looked at Alex, I saw a look of determination on his face. He was going to sign the contract, no matter what I said. And as I watched, helpless to stop him, Alex reached out and signed the contract. It was a move that would change everything, and I knew that I would never be able to go back to the way things were before. The question was, what would happen next? As soon as Alex signed the contract, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I knew that I had to act fast to try and undo the damage. "Alex, what have you done?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. But Alex just smiled, a look of confidence on his face. "I've made a smart business decision, Grandpa," he said. "This contract is going to make me rich." I shook my head, trying to reason with him. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into, Alex. This contract is probably full of loopholes and fine print. You need to be careful." But Alex just waved me off. "I've read the contract, Grandpa. I know what I'm doing." I sighed, feeling frustrated. I knew that I couldn't stop Alex now, but I could try to make him see reason. "Alex, listen to me," I said. "Your grandfather may not be the most business-savvy person, but I know a thing or two about deals. And this one smells fishy. You need to be careful." But Alex just laughed. "You're just jealous, Grandpa," he said. "You're jealous that I'm going to be successful and you're not." I felt a surge of anger at Alex's words, but I tried to keep my cool. I knew that I had to stay calm if I was going to get through to him. "Alex, I'm not jealous of you," I said. "I'm just worried about you. You're my grandson, and I want to see you succeed. But I don't want to see you get hurt." Alex looked at me, a skeptical expression on his face. "You're just saying that because you don't want me to succeed," he said. "You're just trying to hold me back." I felt a pang of sadness at Alex's words. I knew that I had to make him see that I was coming from a good place. "Alex, that's not true," I said. "I want you to succeed, but I also want you to be careful. I don't want to see you get hurt. But Alex just shook his head. You don't understand, Grandpa, he said. This is my chance to make it big. And I'm not going to let you or anyone else hold me back. I sighed, feeling defeated. I knew that I couldn't stop Alex now, but I could try to be there for him when things went wrong. And I had a feeling that they would go wrong. As I stood there, trying to think of what to do next, my brother spoke up. Well, it looks like everything is settled then, he said, a smug look on his face. Alex has signed the contract, and now we can get down to business. I glared at my brother, feeling a surge of anger. I knew that he was behind this whole thing, and I was determined to expose him. This isn't over, I said, my voice low and menacing. I'm going to find out what's going on, and I'm going to stop it. My brother just laughed. You're just a foolish old man, he said. You don't know what you're up against. But I'll give you a hint, you're not going to be able to stop me. I've got too many tricks up my sleeve. I felt a chill run down my spine at my brother's words. I knew that I was in for a fight, but I was ready. I was going to do whatever it took to protect my grandson and expose my brother's schemes. As I stood there, trying to think of my next move, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see a woman standing in the doorway, a look of curiosity on her face. Can I help you? She asked. I shook my head, feeling a sense of unease. Who was this woman, and what did she want? But before I could ask her any questions, my brother spoke up. Ah, perfect timing, he said. This is the woman who is going to help Alex make his fortune. I felt a surge of anger at my brother's words. Who was this woman, and what did she have to do with Alex's contract? I was determined to find out. Who are you? I asked, my voice firm. The woman smiled, a confident look on her face. My name is Sophia, she said. And I'm here to help Alex make his fortune. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. How do you plan on doing that? I asked. Sophia smiled again. Let's just say that I have a few tricks up my sleeve, she said. And with Alex's contract, we're going to be able to make a lot of money. I felt a chill run down my spine at Sophia's words. I knew that I had to be careful, but I was determined to find out what was going on. I was going to ask Sophia some questions, and I was going to get some answers. I looked at Sophia, my eyes narrowing as I tried to read her expression. She seemed confident, but I could sense a hint of nervousness beneath the surface. What kind of tricks do you have up your sleeve? I asked, my voice firm. Sophia smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Let's just say that I have a way of making people see things my way, she said. And with Alex's contract, we're going to be able to make a lot of money. I felt a surge of anger at Sophia's words. I didn't like the sound of this one bit. What kind of contract is this? I asked, my voice rising. Sophia shrugged. It's a standard contract, she said. Alex will provide certain services, and will provide him with a percentage of the profits. I snorted. A percentage of the profits? I repeated. That sounds like a pretty raw deal to me. Sophia smiled again. Oh, I think Alex will find that it's a fair deal, she said. And besides, he's already signed the contract. It's too late to back out now. I felt a cold dread creeping over me as I realized the truth. Alex had been manipulated into signing a contract that was likely to benefit Sophia and my brother, but not him. I knew that I had to act fast to protect him. Alex, listen to me, I said, turning to my grandson. You need to get out of this contract. It's not a good deal for you. But Alex just shook his head. I've already signed it, Grandpa, he said. Besides, Sophia says that it's a great opportunity for me. I glared at Sophia, my anger rising. You're using my grandson for your own gain, I accused. Sophia shrugged. I'm just providing him with an opportunity, she said. He's the one who signed the contract. I felt a surge of rage at Sophia's words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I was going to have to think of a way to get Alex out of this contract, and fast. As I stood there, trying to think of my next move, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see a man standing in the doorway, a look of curiosity on his face. Can I help you? Sophia asked, her voice smooth. The man smiled. I'm here to see Alex, he said. I'm his new business partner. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the truth. This man was likely another one of Sophia's associates, here to help her manipulate Alex into doing her bidding. I knew that I had to act fast to protect my grandson. Alex, don't do it, I said, turning to him. Don't get involved with these people. They're going to hurt you. But Alex just shook his head. I've already signed the contract, Grandpa, he said. I'm committed to this. I felt a sense of despair wash over me as I realized that Alex was determined to go through with this. I was going to have to think of a way to stop him, and fast. As I stood there, trying to think of my next move, I heard Sophia's voice behind me. I think it's time for us to get down to business, she said. Alex, why don't you come with me and we'll discuss the details of the contract? I felt a surge of anger at Sophia's words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I was going to have to follow Alex and see what Sophia had planned for him. As I followed Alex and Sophia out of the room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. I knew that I was in for a fight, but I was determined to protect my grandson at all costs. Little did I know, things were about to get a lot worse. As I followed Alex and Sophia out of the room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I knew that I was in for a fight, but I was determined to protect my grandson at all costs. We walked down a long hallway, the sound of our footsteps echoing off the walls. Sophia led the way, with Alex following closely behind her. I trailed behind them, my eyes fixed on Alex's back. I could sense that he was nervous, but he was trying to hide it. We eventually arrived at a large conference room, the table in the center of the room filled with papers and documents. Sophia gestured for Alex to take a seat, and he did so, looking a bit hesitant. I stood at the back of the room, my eyes fixed on Sophia as she began to speak. So, Alex, as we discussed earlier, this contract outlines the terms of our agreement, she said, her voice smooth and confident. You'll provide us with certain services, and in return, we'll provide you with a percentage of the profits. Alex nodded, his eyes scanning the documents in front of him. I could sense that he was trying to understand the fine print, but I knew that he was in over his head. Sophia continued to speak, her voice droning on as she outlined the details of the contract. I listened intently, my mind racing with questions and concerns. As she spoke, I couldn't help but notice the way Alex was looking at her. He seemed to be under her spell, his eyes fixed on hers with a look of admiration. I felt a surge of anger at the sight, knowing that Sophia was manipulating him for her own gain. As the meeting drew to a close, Sophia handed Alex a pen and gestured for him to sign the contract. He hesitated for a moment, looking up at me with a questioning expression. I shook my head, trying to convey my disapproval. But Alex just shrugged and signed the contract, a look of determination on his face. Sophia smiled, a triumphant look on her face. Excellent, she said, taking the contract from Alex. I'll get this filed and we can get started right away. As she turned to leave, I stepped forward, my voice firm. Wait, I said, my eyes fixed on Sophia. I'm not going to let this happen. You're taking advantage of my grandson, and I'm not going to stand for it. Sophia turned to face me, a look of amusement on her face. Oh, come on, she said. You're not going to stop this. Alex has already signed the contract. It's too late to back out now. I felt a surge of anger at her words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I was going to have to think of a way to stop this, and fast. As I stood there, trying to think of my next move, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see my brother standing in the doorway, a look of satisfaction on his face. "Ah, perfect timing," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I see that Alex has signed the contract. That's just great." I felt a surge of anger at my brother's words, knowing that he was behind this whole thing. I was going to have to confront him, and fast. But as I turned to face him, I realized that something was off. My brother's expression was different, his eyes gleaming with a sinister intent. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the truth. My brother was in deeper than I had thought, and I was in grave danger. As I stood there, frozen in shock, my brother began to walk towards me, a sly smile spreading across his face. I could see the glint of triumph in his eyes, and I knew that I was in trouble. "You're too late to stop this, brother," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "The contract is signed, and there's nothing you can do to change it." I felt a surge of anger at his words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me, not now. I took a deep breath and tried to think of a way to respond, but before I could say anything, my brother continued to speak. "You see, brother, I've been planning this for a long time," he said, his voice dripping with pride. "I've been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and now that Alex has signed the contract, I can finally put my plan into action." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the truth. My brother was behind this whole thing, and he had been manipulating everyone involved. I was starting to piece together the clues, and I didn't like what I was seeing. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My brother just laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You'll find out soon enough, brother," he said. "But for now, let's just say that I've got a plan, and it's going to make me rich beyond my wildest dreams." I felt a surge of anger at his words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me, not now. I took a deep breath and tried to think of a way to respond, but before I could say anything, Sophia spoke up. "I think it's time for us to get down to business," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "Alex, why don't you come with me and we'll start discussing the details of the contract?" Alex nodded, still looking a bit hesitant, but he followed Sophia out of the room. My brother watched them go, a satisfied smile on his face. "It's all falling into place, brother," he said, turning to me. "And there's nothing you can do to stop it." I felt a surge of anger at his words, but I knew that I had to keep my cool. I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me, not now. I took a deep breath and tried to think of a way to respond, but before I could say anything, my brother turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, feeling frustrated and helpless. I knew that I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I was starting to feel like I was running out of options, and time was running out. I had to think of something, and fast, or risk losing everything. As I stood there, trying to think of a way to respond, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see a woman standing in the doorway, a look of concern on her face. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft and gentle. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. "No, I'm fine," I said, trying to sound confident. But the woman just looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep understanding. "You're not fine," she said, her voice firm. "You're in trouble, and you need help." I felt a surge of surprise at her words, but before I could respond, she continued to speak. "My name is Emily," she said. "And I'm here to help you." I looked at her, my mind racing with questions. Who was this woman, and how did she know what was going on? But before I could ask her any questions, she just smiled and nodded. "Come with me," she said. "We need to talk." I followed Emily out of the room, my mind racing with questions. Who was this woman, and how did she know what was going on? But as we walked, she began to explain. "I used to work with your brother," she said. "I was one of his associates, but I realized that he was doing something wrong. He was using people for his own gain, and I couldn't be a part of it anymore." I felt a surge of anger at her words, but also a sense of gratitude. This woman was on my side, and she was going to help me take down my brother. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily's eyes flashed with determination. "I gathered evidence," she said. "I knew that your brother was doing something wrong, and I wanted to prove it. I've been working with the authorities for months, and we finally have enough to take him down." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, followed by a sense of excitement. We were going to take down my brother, and we were going to make him pay. Emily and I walked into a large conference room, where a group of police officers were waiting. They were all dressed in uniform, and they looked like they meant business. "We've been investigating your brother for months," one of the officers said. "We have enough evidence to charge him with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement." I felt a surge of satisfaction at the officer's words. My brother was going down, and he was going to pay for what he had done. The officers began to explain the charges, and the evidence they had gathered. It was all very technical, but I understood the basics. My brother had been using people's money for his own gain, and he had been lying to them about the investments. He had been using his charm and charisma to convince people to give him their money, and then he had been using it to fund his own lavish lifestyle. I felt a sense of disgust at the thought of my brother's actions. He had always been selfish and greedy, but I had never realized just how far he would go to get what he wanted. As the officers continued to explain the charges, I couldn't help but think about Alex. He had been so trusting, so naive. He had given my brother his money, and he had expected to get a return on his investment. But my brother had just used him, just like he had used so many other people. I felt a surge of anger at the thought of my brother's actions. He was going to pay for what he had done. The officers finished explaining the charges, and then they turned to me. "We need your help," one of them said. "We need you to testify against your brother." I nodded, feeling a sense of determination. I was going to make sure that my brother paid for what he had done. I was going to make sure that he never hurt anyone again. The trial was a long and difficult process, but in the end, my brother was found guilty. He was sentenced to many years in prison, and he was ordered to pay back the money he had stolen. I felt a sense of satisfaction as I watched him being led away in handcuffs. He had finally gotten what was coming to him. Alex was also given back the money he had invested, and he was able to start fresh. He was grateful to me for helping him, and he thanked me for being there for him. I was just glad that I could help. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure. My brother was finally being held accountable for his actions, and I could finally move on with my life. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came my way. I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one that was free from the drama and stress of my brother's actions.